Hey, what's up, everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast for episode number 117, in which I'm actually going to do a response episode to the last episode, which was the Trump Stand By episode. First off, I want to thank all of you because we had a political conversation, a back and forth, if you will, that I thought was very productive. I didn't feel like anyone was overtly disrespectful. And my whole thing is I'm all about debate, but I am completely against just blatant disrespect. I have members of my family that are, on the complete opposite side of the fence of me. And we've always found a way to discuss things and still, have a mutual amount of respect for each other. And I feel like the world should be able to do that. Our differences aren't so dividing that a topic should lead to an all-out war between two sides. And, as I said to you guys, I'm truly not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm just a person. I'm somebody who sees the advantages and disadvantages of both parties. To be completely honest, I hate a two-party system. I think that's a big issue. But I understand a lot of the hype around Trump, and I understand much of the criticism as well. And I also understand, some of the fears around Biden for sure. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go through the comments here and address a few things that were brought up consistently. I promise you we will get back to the mysterious, the bizarre, and the unexplained on the next episode. We got something great coming for you. But I did want to retouch again on our discussion from last week's episode. And if you do enjoy some of these political podcasts, every now and then I'll sprinkle some of these in. It was just hard to avoid the election and the aftermath when it was dominating pretty much everything in the media. So I definitely wanted to, share my 2 cents and also have you get the opportunity to share your 2 cents in the comments as well. So let's get into it. The first thing that I wanted to talk about here, and a question that came up over and over again, is what will Daniel David Skyfall have to say about this? Because Skyfall did, in fact, make a prediction that Trump would win his second term. Well, just so you guys know, I wish I had an answer for you. I have not heard back from Skyfall. I messaged him immediately on the morning of November 4th and said, hey, what's going on? It looks like Biden's out in front here. Obviously your prediction was Trump. What do you have to say? I mean, it's taken as long as a month before to get a response from him. He's not exactly on call for me, but I am interested in what he has to say about all this. Obviously, I told you guys I voted for Biden, so I didn't go with his prediction. But, look, I think it can mean many things. I don't think Skyfall is, God in the sense that he can just predict everything with absolute 100% certainty. When I first started posting his predictions, they were because if he was real and if he had the connections that he said he had, at least the majority of them should be correct, right? I mean, that's what I assumed. And I was blown away because every single prediction up to this one has been correct. And I would like to remind you that, Biden is not sworn in as president yet. And Trump is still fighting it, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. But, this isn't done yet. And also, Trump could still have a second term. That's a possibility. We're talking about this election here. Trump could run again and very easily win in 4 years. I could see that happening. It could be that Trump just, wasn't playing ball with the plan. I don't know. I mean, but I definitely, obviously, I want to hear from Skyfall because although I don't put ultimate stock in everything he says, it's kind of hard when, you spend a year straight watching a guy predict with an incredible amount of accuracy, prediction after prediction after prediction, and they're just coming true. He also predicted that there would be, a battle in the Middle East that would start, and it would involve nuclear proliferation. And I don't know if you guys just saw, but the head of Iran's nuclear program was just executed. in which Iran is blaming Saudi Arabia and the United States. When I saw that, I was going, ooh, I hope this does not turn into what Skyfall predicted. But he predicted that there would be a war in the Middle East, and someone would sweep in and bring a peaceful resolution, and then right after that, that is when the fake alien invasion would begin. So, I don't know. That's my answer to that. It's my honest answer. And there will be an episode on Skyfall's response. I'm certain he will get back to me. At least I hope he will. I mean, if he doesn't, he goes silent all of a sudden. That's pretty scary to me. But how it works is I send the message, then I get a message back from him, and once I read his message, every single time it disappears out of my email box. So it's marked as read, and then it just vanishes. So it doesn't even stay in my email. So I don't even know what program he's using to do that, but it's pretty high tech. So, anyways, I will definitely update you guys in the future on Skyfall's response and what he says is going on. Now, in regards to your guys' comments, one of the things that seemed to trigger a lot of Trump supporters was my assessment that Biden was a good guy. The one thing I want to really remind you guys is that, look, context is hard even with a podcast, right? Because when I say he's a good guy, there's a difference between me saying, oh, he appears to be a good guy, versus me saying my best friend Justin is a good guy, right? Like, I know Justin. I know, all the secrets in his life. I know everything that he's ever done, everywhere he's ever been, I know him. So when I say I know he's a good guy, there's an incredibly deep, amount of sentiment there. When I say Biden seems like a good guy, what I was doing is really just kind of comparing the public personality of Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Not that I even think that Trump appears publicly necessarily to be like a horrible person. I have seen times where, Trump is very charismatic, and like I said, he's funny and entertaining, but he has a mean bone in him. He has a venomous bone where when someone says something that he doesn't like, I mean, he is just vicious. And there are a lot of people that say, well, that's, he has the right to be. Well, maybe so. And we could debate that all day long. I think when you're the president, you should have really thick skin. And you should understand that you're probably going to be the most criticized human being on planet Earth. And that's no matter who you are. If you're going to be the president, you are going to take a ton of shit from the public. And I just think it's better to be bulletproof to that stuff. It's better to walk out and tell the public what they need to hear as far as warnings go, but also tell the public what they need to hear as far as good news and things that we've accomplished. And, just don't deal with the Twitter and Fox crowd or CNN crowd or any of that stuff. I would love to see a president kind of carry himself like a statesman again. It's been a long time since we had a president that carried themselves as a statesman. Obama, very much so, carried himself as a statesman. He's an orator. He's a wonderful speaker. And while I loved Obama's character, man, he just didn't seem to do that much as a president because he was always in gridlock, and he didn't deliver on a lot of the promises that he made either, especially in regard with the military. But he carried himself like a statesman, and I think there's benefits to that. And I think the president's personality will always play a role in both domestic and international policy. And so when I was saying I think Biden's a good guy, it's just if you compare the way Biden speaks to people and the general tone that he has, even with his opposition, he's much less like just angry and vindictive than Trump is. He also is not one to toot his own horn like Trump does. In fact, I've never come across somebody. And see, and this is partly, it depends on how you were raised, man. I mean, I was raised like when you do something good, you let other people sing your praise, My dad's favorite running back was Barry Sanders in the NFL. And the reason he loved Barry so much is Barry never once spiked the football, never once took part in an end zone celebration. Every time he scored, he ran over and he handed the ball to the ref. And my dad was always like, see, we score touchdowns, you act like you've been there before. And I have a respect for that. I have a respect for when you do great things, let other people sing your praise. And Trump, man, just every time I see him talking, there was just this, I am the greatest thing ever. Everything I'm doing is the greatest ever. Um, and no one's ever seen anything like it. It's to the degree, like I said, that it seems like a mental disorder, where it's like, why? Just stop talking. If everything you're doing is so great, then you're going to walk into the next presidency, and everything's going to, everyone's going to love you, and there'll be no issues. But that's not how it works. You got to vote. So with Trump, he did a lot of damage to himself by getting involved in these conspiracy theories, and when people would challenge him on it, he would damn near lose it up there. And the way he would viciously strike at the media, it's just not going to be a winning plan forever. I think it worked really well before he took office because no one had seen what a Trump presidency would look like. So yeah, it would get you pumped up. I remember watching I remember watching some Trump rallies before he got elected, where I was just like, dude, this guy is owning the media because they can't not cover him. And he's just literally to their face, just telling them, you're all, lying SOBs. And they are. The media is. 100% totally agree with Trump about the media. And I thought, this is dope. This dude is like calling them out to their face. And they can't, do anything but cover it. He was like using them against themselves. And I was like, this is brilliant, But the narrative changes. Like once you're president, you can measure the country and the job that you're doing as president. And if the job that you're doing is only to keep the Dow high, that's not a winning formula, man. It's just not. I mean, think of how many people in the country own stock versus people that don't. I can assure you a much greater number of people in America do not own stock and could give two shits what the Dow's at, nor can they even understand it. Okay, so when Trump holds a 60-second press conference to say the Dow just clipped 30,000 today, no one ever thought they'd ever see anything like that. Well, first off, sure they did. The Dow just increases over time. That's how it works. And, secondly, most of the country, that's not news. It's not news. They don't have stock, especially at a time period where our country now is like, is decimated. I mean, it's as bad as it gets, and it's fixing to get real dark, which we'll talk about in a second too. But anyways, back to the, Biden being a good guy. Please understand that was a superficial assessment because I don't really know Biden. I just know when I think Trump in my head and Biden in my head, if I was going to have dinner with one or the other, which would come off as like a better evening? I think Biden would be kind, and I think that he wouldn't spend the entire time talking about himself or trashing other people. Which I know people that have had dinner with Trump and have said he's pretty much like that 24/7. He is a machine of self-promotion. And yes, you could argue that as an outsider, he has to be. So there's arguments about all this stuff. But for those that got so triggered about the Biden good guy comment, what I can assure you is that I didn't vote for Biden because I thought he was a good guy. I was just making, like I said, a surface level assertion of his character versus Trump's. That's all I was doing. And neither of that matters because I also didn't not vote for Trump because I think he's got, a really abrasive, difficult character. It really did come down to policy for me. So, the other thing I heard over and over again was Hunter's laptop. Chad, you don't know about Hunter's laptop. You're not talking about Hunter's laptop. The secrets of the world are in Hunter's laptop. And guys, one thing I can assure you of is I spend a ton of time politically. It's just not something that I do publicly all the time because I think there's so many of those shows out there. I felt it was okay to dip the toe in the water, in the week after the election. But this obviously isn't a show where every single week you get, the updates on Trump or the updates on Biden and what they're doing. But I spend a ton of time, watching and reading and studying. I watch it all. because I think you have to get to the truth of what's going on, And I'm often amused by, people who the first time you have a criticism over Trump, they go, "Oh man, all you do is watch CNN. You need to turn on Fox." And it's like, yeah, come on, man. I realize that CNN is going to do everything they can to go after Trump and the Republican Party, and Fox is going to do everything they can to go after the Democratic Party, and they are both equally, absolutely full of shit. I mean, neither one of those networks are even news. It's not. It's all entertainment based, and it's which side are you on? If you're, a supporter of the Republican Party, then you're going to watch Fox News. If you do watch Fox News, you're going to be happy all day long because it's going to be all about how the Republicans are owning it, the Democrats are monsters, and the Democrats just want, the world, America to turn into a socialism-driven system. I've heard all the Fox News points. They're going to defund the police, and they're going to, take away your guns, and they're going to open up free borders, and it's the same rhetoric, Anybody they don't like is involved with China, and then you flip it over to the other side, and CNN is the same way. It's like everybody's involved with Russia. Everybody is involved with dirty business behind the scenes. You can't. It's the same rhetoric over and over again. So again, my vote didn't revolve around news cycles of CNN or Fox at all. And I've heard everything there is about Biden's laptop. And the thing with Biden's laptop, you just have to look at, there's a reason why even Fox News did not want to report on that situation. Because you have to understand where that situation came from. There were so many sketchy holes in the story, starting with the fact that the whole scenario came from Giuliani and Steve Bannon. I mean, listen, if you know anything about Steve Bannon, I mean, he's like right there in league with Roger Stone. I mean, like, Bannon is an absolute he's so, man, I don't know. I'm trying to look for the words to describe Steve Bannon. Well, first of all, I'm not going to say he's not smart. He's a very, very smart guy, but he's like an anarchist. Like, this guy wants to literally blow the system up and rebuild it. I mean, he honestly called to cut off Fauci's head and put it on a stake at the front of the White House. And when the person interviewing him asked him and said, "Yeah, well, that's a little much. I mean, he was like, no, I mean, I literally mean we should chop his head off and put it on a stake." I mean, this is insane, man. And this guy, who, by the way, Bannon, who is indicted for siphoning, they say, over $1 million off Trump's Build the Wall campaign, he's the main person out there pushing this Hunter Biden laptop story, and Giuliani is out there pushing this Hunter Biden laptop story. What they didn't realize is you can't make assertions and assessments like they did without delivering a clean line to the evidence. The evidence has to be real, and there has to be a real way that you came, across the evidence. And if there was anything in that laptop that was definitive, that could have, like, I've heard every conspiracy theory in the world about that laptop. They're like, man, there's tons of these pictures of him doing drugs. First off, Hunter Biden's not running for president. Secondly, everybody knows that he had addiction issues. I'm sorry, I don't think someone that has had addiction issues makes them a horrible person. I don't, And then you look at all the stuff that, he's been paid money from this person. That stuff's already been investigated, I mean, if there was anything that was clean and clear about that, then the Republicans would have been all over that, I mean, that's the one thing is, when you run for president, any dirt that you have, it's coming out, period. And this Hunter Biden laptop, you got to wonder, why didn't the press want to touch it? Why didn't the press want to touch it? Well, the whole story even sounds weird. Hunter just drops off a laptop with all of this stuff in it, leaves it there for 6 months. Then the owner of the laptop store goes through the laptop, and then he decides, I should send this to Giuliani and Steve Bannon. I mean, there was just so much there that was sketchy as can be. And, outside of Hunter having a drug problem, it was just nothing but crazy assertions that if they were real, Hunter would be in jail right now. Like, I even heard or I was on one of the QAnon pages. Every now and then I check in with the Qsters to see what they're saying. And they were talking about, oh, there's all these photos with Hunter Biden and underage children. Again, if that were true, and this was a confirmed underage girl, and it was a photo of Hunter Biden with her in some sexual capacity, all they would have to do is walk that into the FBI or any local, authority that there is, and that's it. They're going to go arrest him, period. Okay? So when none of this is happening, and it's just two suspect dogs that are just kind of yelping, saying, I got evidence, really bad, guys, it's really bad, it's so bad, I got it all right here. Well, let us see it. It's coming. Well, let us see it. No, it's so bad, guys. Okay, let us see it. And that never happens. So when it comes down to Hunter Biden's laptop, just to respond to this, again, if there's some really terrible shit in there that can be 100% proven, I'm all about it. Then bring it out. Let's see it. If it can be proven, let's see it. Because I don't think, if Donald Trump is as crooked as the left side would like you to believe, I don't think the answer is replacing him with somebody who's just as crooked. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be a decent human being that can do this job, So I'm all about it. If there's proof and evidence of all these horrible things, bring them out. Bring them out and let America decide. Because you don't want to put the wrong guy in that office. So, I mean, that's my whole, position on Hunter's laptop. Outside of him being, somebody who struggled with drug addiction, I didn't see anything else on there that was proven, anything. Even saying in his text messages, oh, leave out a percentage for the big guy. Is that, are they referring to Joe Biden? Maybe, maybe not. The point is, it's not proven, so you can't say, And I was also on Kavanaugh's side. Remember when Kavanaugh, he was being confirmed for the Supreme Court? I was sitting here going, this is crazy. 20-some years after this, party, there's 5-6 women that come out and say, oh, he was just a sexual monster. First off, I'm looking at Kavanaugh, and he comes off like a total dork. And I'm just saying, but none of them have proof of anything. It's just a person's statement. And we just don't, that's kangaroo court. We have laws in America. You have to be able to prove things. And if you can't prove them, then you can't prove them. And that's a system of law that we adopted and we stand by. We cannot live in a country where just anybody can say anything and it just shuts everything down. That's insane to me. If there is something there that is verifiable proof, bring it forward or shut up about it. Because we don't need any more fog, man. We don't need any more fog, And that stands today too. If there's something real in there and Trump knows it's real and Giuliani knows it's real and they can prove it, bring it out. Bring it out. But until I see it, it's a non-story, Also, one thing someone sent me, or one of the comments said, look, there's all kinds of MAGA supporters that aren't dangerous, that aren't, sitting in their house waiting around for war and things like that. Let me be the first to say, no, I completely agree. I was not trying to insinuate that there's, a nation of people that want to go to war. What I'm insinuating, look, remember, my father voted for Trump, okay? So he wasn't sitting around. He was a military guy, so he was not sitting around wanting to go to war, trust me. But what I meant is there are a lot of very passionate people that 70 million of them, that support Trump. And within that large group, you're always going to have, your far fringe right. And the same thing with the left, too. You're going to have your Antifas as well. Within those large groups, of far-right supporters, militia groups. Look, we've seen interviews now of people that are saying, listen, we will not stand by and allow this election to be stolen. Now, they've already in their mind, without any proof, they've already in their mind decided that every discrepancy at the voting center somehow, went against Trump, and they somehow all went for Biden. And they've decided that this is, going to be, some great reversal at the last second that's going to land Trump in the presidency. And man, crazier things have happened. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Trump's up against a really difficult wall to climb, which is, again, proof. Not people giving, stories. We've seen that, Giuliani, first off, I think the biggest mistake Trump has consistently made is doubling down on Rudolph Giuliani's ability to lead any kind of public charge on Trump's behalf. You would have thought that Trump would have learned his lesson when he rolled Giuliani out as the TV lawyer, in the Stormy Daniels case, where Giuliani could not stop spouting off, contradictory statements every other week as to what Trump knew, that he didn't know, what he said, then he didn't say it. It was a mess. I mean, it was absolutely a mess that was only made worse by Giuliani attempting to be the public face of this. Well, now he's the public face of this fraud charge. And look, he's holding press conferences at, lawn care garages, which looks terrible. Then he holds another press conference like in this basement, and he looks like he's bleeding out of his ears because his hair is melting, and it's so distracting from the point that they're trying to make that, of course, that gets all the headlines. And then I just saw yesterday where one of these things, they're holding their public kind of court thing, and it's not even court, it's just them making a public case. And, Giuliani just farts loud as can be, man, right in the middle of talking. And his attorney next to him just looks at him like, oh my God.
They didn't bother to interview a single witness. Just like you, they didn't bother to interview a single witness. Just like you, they didn't bother to interview a single witness. Just like you.
My God. And Giuliani, he makes the case that affidavits are absolutely not evidence by bringing this beautiful blonde girl in who seems to be drunk, and she starts talking about, the voter registration and the process, and she's talking to these representatives who are just trying to understand what she's saying. And the girl starts arguing with them about what they're looking at. And they're stopping over and over again to go, man, listen, I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
The poll book is completely off. Completely off.
Off by 30,000?
I'd say that poll book is off by over 100,000. That poll book, why don't you look at the registered voters on there?
So my question then is, if the
guess how many? Wait, what about the turnout rate? 120%.
Let's let Representative Johnson ask his question.
My question is, why we're not seeing the poll book off by 30,000 votes? That's not the case.
What did you guys do? Take it and do something crazy to it?
I mean, this is going on at these public, like you said, they're not even court. They're it's just basically Giuliani is famous enough to get representatives in to hear these claims. And I go back to the same thing. If there is some provable, widespread fraud that somehow handed Biden this victory, if that's the case, I would think any American would want to know. Any American. But you have to understand that I think it's 35 courts now. They are 0-35. 35 courts have thrown out their claims as being baseless, saying there's nothing you have here that's proof. 35 courts. 35 courts. Trump's head of cybersecurity came out and said, after reviewing, we found that this election was the safest election in history. In history. Trump fires him right away. Bar Bill Barr came out, I believe it was yesterday, and said, we have found absolutely no evidence of widespread voter fraud. This is Barr. This is the guy that's been shielding Trump from everything he can. So what you're seeing is a lot of these guys that want to stick up for Trump have gotten to this place where they're like, hey, listen, without proof, we both got, kids and a family and a wife and a career to think about too. Like, we cannot go down with the ship here. Like, there's no proof of this. There's no proof. And affidavits, people's stories, are not proof. If people's stories were proof, Kavanaugh would have never been elected to the Supreme Court. Because that's all we heard when all these girls came in and said, yeah, he pressed me against the wall and he kissed me 25 years ago. Well, who was there? You and him? Yep. Well, we don't live in a country where you can take someone and deny them, justice because someone has a story. And that's all an affidavit is. It's just a story. Well, if Giuliani comes to town and says, hey, I'm looking for voter fraud, does anybody want to give me their affidavit? There's tons of people that would do it just out of support and anger because they want their candidate to win. There's tons of people that would do it just to get close to Giuliani because he's famous. There's a million reasons why people would lie and do that. And that's what we're seeing, and 35 courts have thrown this out. So let me be someone who voted for Biden to say, if there is proof of some incredible plan that was pulled off by Biden and his team, I want to see it. But you only have a time period to show me, man. I mean, we can't be like, well, we're just going to, put the election and due process and all that on hold for like a year as we dig around. And, we may not find anything, maybe we will. We don't know. Like, that's not how it works, man. It's just not how it works. And, I know what it's like to, be excited about a candidate and then he doesn't win. It sucks. You feel like you got just, a hole in your stomach, man. You're just like, oh, this sucks. I know the feeling. But it happens, Anybody who's ever like rooted for your favorite team, like in a Super Bowl or something, or like a bowl game, and you were so into that team, and then they lose. I mean, it's crushing. This is 10 times worse than that because this is about life, right? It's about life. So, look, man, it is what it is. They're running out of chances with this widespread voter fraud thing when Trump can't even get his own, acting attorney general on board. Then it's just about lights out, and hopefully that goes, the process of the transition. Hopefully we do get to a place where that can happen peacefully, because I don't think it's good for the country to be doing what we're doing right now. But, what I meant to say is, once the AG, like I said, Barr, his own head of cybersecurity, Rudy has made a mockery out of this entire thing. Trump needs to retire him, lock him in a box, and never let him back out again. There was a time where Giuliani was brilliant, guys, and that's no BS. If you go back and look at his history, man, he did some incredible things. I mean, the RICO Act, which is primarily used to take out, like mafia groups and gangs and gang leaders, that was Giuliani. Giuliani found a way to use the RICO Act to try large groups of people under the same crime, and that's how he took out, the 5 mafia families. I mean, they're decimated because of Giuliani. There was a time where he was brilliant, but we all have our day in the sun. We get that. That's one of the hard things about aging, and I've kind of learned this, is that nobody just infinitely gets better at what you do, right? There comes a time period where you're at the top of your game. And in some things, that could be later on in life. There's some authors and book authors that later on in life, like, write good books in their 30s, but in their 60s, they're like killing it, and there's, and when you look at sports, right, there's some guys that are good at 24, but at 32 they were the best ever, and then by 40 they're looking at the back end, or even people that run businesses. There's times where you're younger and you're just clued into society more, and you know what people want, what they like using, the process more. And as you get older, some people just start to kind of lose contact with society, and they're not up to par on what is happening. My point being is nobody gets infinitely better at something that they do. There comes a time where you're not as sharp as you once were, and Rudy is not as sharp as he once was. And it's sad. It's sad to see a guy consistently make a mockery out of himself. And for those who support Trump, I feel sorry for you, because you have Rudy out there doing this. That if Trump has a case, Rudy's making it look really, really bad. And that's gotta suck. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm saying I empathize. So they got to get him out of there if they have any kind of hope, which I don't think at this point they have really any kind of hope left, because people are getting upset. And just to come all the way back around, the whole MAGA thing and MAGA army. And I wasn't insinuating that every supporter of Trump is going to want to take to the streets and burn the house down. What I'm saying is there are far right extreme groups that really do believe that Stand By was a kind of like a directive given from Trump, and that there will come a time where he will be okay, with war coming to the streets. Is that possible? Sure, man. Yeah, listen, anytime you get a large group of people that have a ton of passion, going against another group of people in the streets, that's definitely possible. I mean, look, people fight over basketball games, man. Like, they fight over football games. How many riots have you guys seen and footage, overseas of soccer games? I mean, these are games. These are not real life. So it's absolutely possible. And I didn't mean that MAGA far right groups on the right side are any different or any less than groups on the left side. I was just saying the far right groups on the right side are going to be the ones that are more upset, because they're the ones that look as though they're losing. Right? Trump was their guy. He's going to be gone. So they're going to, quote, have more to fight for. So that's what I was basically insinuating, and why I brought that up. It's not because I realize that the mass majority of people are not grabbing pitchforks around the streets. That's ridiculous. But this thing can also grow into something that's really scary. It doesn't take the majority of society to start or engage in a war. It just takes a percentage. That's it. I mean, think about that, and I think that percentage definitely exists. And I'm going to say this again. This thing is not over. Trump will not go quietly into that dark night. It is not who he is as a person. Now, what will he have the ability to do? I don't know. The kind of fumbling fuckery that he's engaged in right now with all this Rudy Giuliani-led town halls, and that's what they are. They're glorified town halls to representatives. That's oddly kind of taking away his power, because the more and more Rudy starts farting and bringing in drunk women that are, raging on guys that are just trying to figure out what's going on, which is exactly what he did yesterday. Go find this footage of this girl. I mean, literally, like I said, there's a guy, and he's part of the House of Representatives, and he's just trying to understand what she's saying. And she's engaged in, so what'd you do? Take the books and do something crazy with them? I mean, it's crazy stuff, guys. So, I don't know how much power Trump will have when January 20th comes, but I just don't see him going, okay, well, it was a good shot. And he said as much. He has said, listen, it's going to be really hard for me, really hard to accept this, because he either believes there was widespread fraud, or he's just pushing the narrative, but he's sold to it. I mean, he's completely sold out for that narrative. So we'll see what happens when the time comes. Either way, I think we got a real dark future headed our way, guys. I think today Biden went on and held this press conference or this speech first, and then a press conference, and it was pretty much him preparing us for what they called a dark winter. And, he went over the problems that we're facing right now. In my city, I could look out the window and see it, Skid Row in Los Angeles now extends from downtown to the beach. And we're looking at millions of more people that may be homeless by January 1. People are broke, man. Don't let the Dow fool you. People are broke. 1 in 6 small businesses are now gone, not operating, gone. Like 1 in 6. The food lines for free food are unlike anything I've ever seen, guys. 8 hours. 8 hours in a car it took people to get through to get food for Thanksgiving here in Los Angeles. 8 hours. Can you imagine the pride-swallowing siege of waiting in a car for 8 hours in the hopes that when you get to the front of the line, there'll be something there for you? Fuck. God, man. It's bad. It's bad, And then, on top of it, you have this, at least out here in California, we have ridiculous leadership. There's some 10 p.m. curfew right now, which is so mindless. So mindless. And all it's really doing is allowing looters to have like surgical precision, because there's absolutely nobody out in the way of police officers that are, making sure that this 10 p.m. curfew is adhered to. So basically all it does is eliminate the eyes of good civilians and take away, the policing so looters can move in and steal something. It's happening all the time right now. And I understand why the cops don't want to be a part of it. They're getting shot at. In LA, cops are getting shot at constantly. I mean, this is so bad, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I'm thinking worse from here. Jeez. So when it comes to Biden, let me make this point too. When I said, I don't know much about his history, I know about his voting history, and I know about, obviously his history with Obama and things like that. But I meant as a leader, like leading the nation. He's never been president before. So, we don't know what that looks like. With Trump, I knew what that looked like. I know what that looks like. And I have problems with it. I have real problems with it. There's some policy I like, some I think is horrible. I think Trump, is so behind on so many things, man. Global warming, I think he's completely out of touch with. I think that whether it's, and I've heard every argument, whether it's intentional or not, there is a racial divide that clearly became visible under his lead. And, I think putting, trillions of dollars into the military and then, fighting over a couple $100 a month as to, whether or not people on unemployment deserve, $300 or $500 a month. I mean, like as a boost, this is mind blowing to me. It's amazing to me that when it comes to weapons of death, we got all the money in the world. When it comes to giving people a chance to survive and make it through this dark window, seems like they're arguing over nickels. And I don't know. I also don't believe in the blue-red thing. You can't treat states with policy in regard to who the government is. You can't be like, oh, well, that's a state there, that's a blue state, quote, blue state, because they have a blue governor. So they're not going to get like these things. But the red states will get support. The blue states won't. Well, the states are made up of red and blue people. So, I mean, if you're a president, your number one job is to protect the entire country and to bring everybody together. You're the president of all the states. And you got to do right by them all. So, I knew what a Trump presidency looked like. I don't know what a Biden presidency looks like. So when I said, I don't know much about him, I really meant in that regard. But I will tell you this. When Trump won last time and the world was freaking out Dave Chappelle went on Saturday Night Live and said, look, he won, and I'm going to give him a chance, and I'm going to demand that he do the same for us. I thought it was a brilliant statement. I thought it was something that needed to be said by the opposition at that time because it was over, and you got to bring people together to get things done. I feel the same way with Biden. I voted for Biden, but it's obviously I'm not like sold on Biden. To me, it was the better of the two options that I had, and I didn't want my vote to mean nothing. I look at it the same way. I mean, I'm going to give Biden a chance, demand that he does better, and if he doesn't, 4 years, he'll be gone. And if everybody that is behind Trump, if they really believe that Trump is the truth and Trump is the answer, the beautiful thing about this country is in 4 years, you can vote him back in. If everybody feels that way, it'll become apparent, and we put it to a vote. And I'll tell you right now, Biden has, man, he's got a tough road to hoe because his presidency is going to start out in one of the bleakest times in American history. And he's going to have to pull off some magic to really, right the train and keep it on the track going in the right direction. He has a lot to accomplish. And I don't know if he can. I don't know. We will see. So anyways, guys, I really want, again, to stress how cool it was to have conversations about this and not be insulting to each other. I think most people have a pretty good head on their shoulders and they could, figure out where they stand. And I think the worst and the most demeaning insult you could say to somebody is you're crazy. And I hear that a lot when somebody doesn't like a political thing. Man, you're crazy. Crazy is demeaning. It's demeaning and it's dismissive, and people aren't crazy. They just have different thoughts and different values based upon the life that they're living. And I understand that. What you do for a living and where you live and your family situation, all of those things are going to determine who you support. And I completely understand that. So I just want to thank all of you for sharing your thoughts. If you disagree with me, that's cool. I got no issues with it. If I disagree with you, that's cool too. I have no issues with it. I think it's beautiful that we can talk about it. And that's what's great about this country, right? We can freely and openly express our thoughts without having to worry about what will happen to us. So always keep that in mind. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the In a Crowded Room podcast. I will be back tomorrow with more. All the best.